The battlefield was silent, but the silence was not peace. It was the silence after fire, the silence after screams, the silence after death. Smoke rose from the broken ships scattered across the black sky. The human colony that once shined with light and laughter was now nothing but ruins. The aliens had come without warning. Their warships cut through the void like blades. Their soldiers showed no mercy, killing every man, woman, and child they found. This was their way, this was their pride. To them, weakness was an insult, mercy was shame, and only destruction was honor. On the ground, among the ruins of burning metal and broken stone, one figure moved. It was a soldier, a human, crawling out from under the wreckage of a fallen building. His armor was cracked, his face was burned, but his eyes were still alive. He had no right to be breathing, yet he was. The aliens saw him and laughed. A single human against their entire force, a broken man standing against an empire. To them, it was almost funny. They pointed their weapons, ready to end him as they had ended so many before. But the human did not raise his gun. He did not charge, he did not beg. Instead, he stood still, breathing hard, staring at the army before him. Something about his calm eyes unsettled the aliens. He was not afraid, and he was not broken. In the middle of the battlefield, the soldier heard a sound. It was soft, weak, almost lost under the crackle of fire. He turned his head and saw a small figure hiding behind a piece of shattered metal. It was an alien child, her eyes wide with terror. Her skin carried the strange colors of her kind. Her hands shook as she clutched a broken toy. She was alive, but barely. The aliens noticed her too, and they laughed again. To them, even their own children were nothing more than tools for war. If she could not fight, she was worthless. One of the alien soldiers raised his weapon to finish her, but the human moved first. With a sudden burst of strength, he rushed forward. He shielded the child with his body, standing between her and the alien guns. The aliens froze for a moment, shocked. Why would a human protect one of them? Why would an enemy shield their young instead of killing her? This was against everything they believed, everything they had been taught. The human soldier spoke, his voice broken but firm. "You don't have to do this," he said. His words echoed across the silent field. The aliens laughed again, but this time their laughter was uneasy. They had expected screams. They had expected hate. They had never expected mercy. The soldier looked at the child, then at the aliens. He lowered his weapon and placed it on the ground. "I will not kill," he said. "You can take me, you can end me, but I will not let you harm her." The aliens hissed, confused and angry. To them, mercy was weakness, but in his eyes, they saw no weakness. They saw fire, they saw strength, but it was a strength they could not understand. The battlefield grew quieter. The smoke drifted, the fire dimmed. Every alien soldier stared at the lone human standing in front of the child. He was injured, outnumbered, and unarmed, yet somehow he was stronger than them. Not in power, not in weapons, but in something deeper, something they had never known. For the first time, the aliens hesitated. Their hands did not pull the trigger, their blades did not strike. Something about this moment held them frozen. One man, one choice, and an entire army could not move. The human stood tall. He knew he would probably die, but he also knew that sometimes the greatest victory was not survival. It was the choice to be more than the enemy expected. And so, in the silent battlefield, one human soldier made a choice that would echo far beyond the ruins of this colony, a choice that would shake the stars themselves. The soldiers of the alien army stood frozen, their weapons aimed, but their hands unable to fire. They had never seen such a thing before, a human protecting one of their own children. It went against every law of war they had followed for centuries. To them, mercy was weakness, but this did not look like weakness. The human's eyes burned with something stronger than fear, stronger than rage. It was a fire they could not understand. The alien commander stepped forward, his armor shining under the dim firelight. He raised his weapon, but his voice carried doubt. "Why do you protect her? Human, she is nothing to you. She's our kind, your enemy." The soldier stood tall, his broken armor reflecting the flames around him. "She is a child," he answered, his voice steady. "She has done nothing, and I will not kill the innocent." The alien soldiers hissed, their sharp teeth glinting. They could not believe it. This man had lost everything. His people, his home, his world, and yet he chose to spare life, not take it. The alien child clung to his leg, her small body shaking with fear. For the first time, she felt someone shielding her, not from her own people, but from death itself. Whispers began among the alien troops. Some called him a fool, others called him weak. But a few stayed silent, their eyes filled with something dangerous, curiosity. Could there be strength in sparing life? Could there be power in mercy? The commander gave the order to seize him alive. They wanted to study him, to drag him before the council. No human had ever shown such madness, and no alien could understand such defiance. They shackled his hands, but still he stood with pride. The child was taken as well, but the soldier kept his eyes on her, promising without words that she would live. When news of a human's choice spread across the galaxy, it shocked all sides. The alien fleets mocked humanity, saying they had become soft. But the story traveled faster than any ship, carried in whispers through the stars. A human soldier had spared the enemy. A human soldier had chosen mercy instead of hate. Among common people, alien civilians tired of endless bloodshed, the story grew like fire. They had never seen their warriors hesitate, yet this one man forced them to stop. Inside the human prisoner's ship, the soldier was beaten, questioned, and mocked. But nothing they did broke his spirit. They asked again and again, "Why did you do it? Why save one of us?" And his answer was always the same: "Because life matters, even yours." The alien child was kept in a separate chamber, her future uncertain. But she never forgot the man who shielded her. In her young heart, a seed was planted, a seed of doubt about her people's cruelty. She began to wonder if everything she had been taught was a lie. If a human, her enemy, could show her kindness, then maybe her people's way was not the only way. The Council of the Alien Empire grew furious when they heard of this act. To them, mercy was poison, and they feared its spread. They declared the human would face a trial by blood, a public spectacle to prove once and for all that mercy had no place in their galaxy. But even as they prepared their cruel games, the idea had already escaped, an idea stronger than fear. One man's choice had lit a spark, and sparks have a way of becoming fire. And so, the silent battlefield was only the beginning. The true war was no longer just for land, ships, or stars. It was a war for belief, a war to decide whether mercy could survive in a galaxy built on cruelty. The story of the human soldier traveled faster than the warships of the alien empire. Everywhere it was told, it grew larger, turning one act of mercy into a tale of defiance. The people whispered about the soldier who protected a child, not of his own kind. Some laughed at the story, calling it weakness, but others lowered their voices when speaking of it because they felt something they had never dared to feel before: doubt. The Alien High Council gathered in their grand chamber, a hall carved from black stone that had seen centuries of conquest. 13 counselors sat on thrones of steel, their faces hidden in shadows, their voices sharp as blades. They ruled their people with fear, with war, and with the promise that mercy was a disease. But now, this one human had challenged their entire order, not with weapons, but with a choice. The council leader, a towering figure with cold silver eyes, struck the floor with his staff. "This must be crushed," he roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "If this spreads, our warriors will hesitate, our people will question, and our empire will weaken." Another counselor hissed, her voice like venom. "This human is dangerous, more dangerous than an army. We must break him in front of all, We must show that mercy leads only to death. But not all counselors agreed. One, older than the rest, leaned forward with quiet words. Perhaps we should study him. Perhaps there is something to be learned in his madness. Why fear what can be understood? The chamber filled with whispers, anger, and unease. They were united in conquest, but this human's choice had divided even them. The soldier was dragged into the chamber in chains, his armor gone, his body broken, but his spirit unshaken. He stood before the council as thousands of alien spectators filled the gallery, waiting to see his fate. The leader glared down at him. You dare defy the order of this galaxy. You dare protect our child instead of killing her. Do you think mercy is strength? The soldier lifted his head, his voice clear. I think mercy is the only strength worth having. The words cut through the hall like fire through ice. Gasps rose from the crowd, some mocking, some fearful, some in awe. The council leader snarled, "Then you will face the trial of fire. You will fight in the arena. And when you fall, all will see mercy burn with you." The decision was final. The arena was a place of legend, where warriors from across the stars fought until only blood and silence remained. It was a theater of cruelty, a celebration of death. No one had ever left the arena alive by showing mercy. But now, the human would be thrown into its flames, not as a warrior, but as a symbol. The council wanted him broken. They wanted his mercy destroyed before the eyes of billions. Yet, even as he was taken away, his eyes never lost their fire. The alien child he had saved was hidden away in a guarded chamber, but she remembered his promise. She whispered his words again and again to herself. Life matters, even yours. For the first time, the seed of doubt grew inside the Empire's own blood. The council believed they were preparing his end, but they did not see the truth. The moment they gave him a stage, they also gave him a voice. And sometimes, a single voice can echo louder than the roar of an entire army. The council's fury was great, but their fear was greater. They feared not the human's body, but his idea, and ideas, once born, cannot be killed so easily. The arena of the alien empire was a place feared across the stars. It was built not just for battle, but for spectacle, a vast circle of stone and fire where thousands gathered to watch death as if it were art. Every seat was filled, every voice roared for blood. Above them, the High Council sat like shadows, ready to watch the human's end. The gates opened and the soldier was pushed inside, his chains removed but his armor stripped away. He stood on the burning sand, the heat rising from the ground, the smell of blood heavy in the air. Around him, giant flames burst from the floor, marking the boundaries of the killing ground. The crowd howled, chanting for slaughter. They wanted to see mercy die here, crushed under the weight of alien tradition. The first opponent entered, a warrior twice the human size, covered in steel armor, carrying a blade that glowed with heat. The alien charged forward with a scream, his weapon raised high. The human moved quickly, rolling aside, grabbing a shard of metal from the ground. He fought with speed and focus, dodging each strike, using the alien's weight against him. But when he had the chance to kill, he did not. Instead, he struck the warrior's leg, disarming him, forcing him to fall. The crowd gasped in shock. The human could have ended him, but he chose to let him live. The second opponent came, then the third, then the fourth. Each one stronger, faster, more brutal. But the human fought the same way every time, never taking a life, only disabling, only sparing. The arena grew restless. The roars turned to confusion, then to whispers. They had never seen such a thing, a warrior who fought without killing. The High Council watched in fury, their plans slipping away. The crowd expected blood, yet what they saw was something different, something they could not name. The human fought not with hate, but with control. Every move a choice, every strike measured. Even the warriors he spared looked at him with something new in their eyes, respect. They had been taught that mercy was weakness, but standing in front of him, they saw no weakness, only strength of a kind they could not understand. The council leader slammed his staff, demanding more. "Send them all," he roared. And so, a dozen alien warriors poured into the arena, blades flashing, shields raised, eyes burning with rage. The human stood alone, his chest heaving, his body covered in wounds. Yet his spirit was unbroken. The crowd fell silent as he raised his voice. "You want blood," he shouted, his voice echoing through the fire. "But I will not give it to you. I will fight, but I will not kill." The battle that followed was chaos, fire and steel clashing in a storm of violence. The human darted between enemies, using their strength against them, striking where it hurt, but never where it killed. He fell, rose again, bled, and still kept fighting. Every time he spared a life, the whispers in the crowd grew louder. Every time he stood tall, the council's fury grew deeper. By the time the last warrior fell to the sand, alive but defeated, the arena was silent. Not a cheer, not a roar, only silence. For the first time in history, the trial of fire had ended without death. The human stood, swaying on his feet, his eyes burning with the same fire they had seen on the battlefield. He raised his hand, blood dripping, his voice shaking but strong. "Mercy is not weakness," he declared. "It is strength, it is power, and it will outlast your cruelty." The words spread through the silence, heavy and sharp. The council looked down in rage, but they could not stop what had begun. An idea had been planted before billions, an idea that no blade could cut, no fire could burn. The crowd did not cheer for blood. They sat frozen, haunted by what they had witnessed. The trial of fire had been meant to destroy mercy, but instead, it had made it unstoppable. The arena remained silent long after the humans' final words. Billions across the galaxy had watched the trial of fire through the Empire's endless broadcasts. What they expected to see was a man broken. What they saw instead was a man unshaken. The human did not win by killing. He won by refusing to kill. And that small difference struck the hearts of many more deeply than any blade. In the shadows of the council chamber, anger boiled. The High Council whispered in fury. They had wanted to crush the human spirit, to show the galaxy that mercy had no place. Instead, they had given him a stage, and he had turned their spectacle into a message. Mercy is power. His voice still echoed, haunting them. If this idea spread, their empire could fracture, for mercy made people question, and questions were dangerous. Far away, in a guarded chamber, the alien child he had once protected grew restless. She had not forgotten his shield, his words, or his fire. She remembered the day her own people had raised weapons against her, and how an enemy had stood in their way. The child had become a symbol too, though small and fragile. She carried in her heart the truth that the council feared. One day, she would speak, and her words would carry the same fire. Among the alien soldiers who had faced him in the arena, whispers began. They had felt his strikes, sharp but never fatal. They had looked into his eyes and seen no hate, only resolve. Some called him foolish, but others could not shake the respect that grew in their hearts. They had fought all their lives to prove strength by ending life. Yet this man had shown strength by sparing it. The seed of doubt grew larger, and seeds, once planted, cannot be removed easily. Across the galaxy, the common people talked in hushed voices. Merchants in far-off markets, miners in frozen colonies, even slaves chained to war engines spoke his name. The human who would not kill, they called him. To the council, it was dangerous, but to the people, it was hope. Hope that maybe there was another way. Hope that mercy could survive even in the darkness of endless war. The council decided they could not wait. The human would be executed, not quietly, but publicly. They believed killing him would erase his words, wipe out his defiance. But they were wrong, for when they tried to silence him, the galaxy only listened more. The turning point came when the child, now growing braver, escaped her guards. She appeared in the council chamber as the execution was being prepared, her voice trembling but loud. "You call him weak," she cried, "but I saw him strong. I saw him protect when you try to destroy. If mercy is weakness, then why are you afraid of it?" The words stunned the hall, for no one had ever spoken against the council so openly. From the mouth of their own kind, from a child, the truth struck like lightning. The council tried to silence her, but the crowd that gathered outside the chamber had already heard. Whispers turned into shouts, shouts turned into chants. The people demanded to see the human again, demanded to hear him speak. The more the council tried to crush his message, the louder it became. And the child, standing fearless now, became his voice when he was chained. The human's act of mercy on a battlefield had lit a spark. The trial of fire had turned that spark into a flame. And now, the flame was spreading beyond control. The galaxy itself was beginning to change. One man's choice, one shield raised in mercy, had set the stars on a new path. The Empire had always been united by fear. Fear of the Council, fear of failure, fear of mercy. But now that unity began to break, the story of the human soldier was no longer a whisper, it was a roar spreading from one world to another. His act of mercy had become more dangerous than any weapon humanity had ever built. On some planets, alien citizens gathered in secret, speaking his name. They asked questions they had never dared to ask. If strength is only killing, then why do we fear a man who refused to kill? Others argued, furious, insisting the human was a trick, a weakness, a danger that would destroy them all. The Empire was no longer at war only with humanity. It was now at war with itself. The Council unleashed propaganda. They showed images of human armies, painting them as monsters. They told their people the human soldier was a liar, that his mercy was only a weapon of deceit. But the more they tried to crush the idea, the stronger it grew. Because people had seen the arena, they had seen the truth with their own eyes. And truth, once seen, cannot be forgotten. Among the alien soldiers, divisions began. Some sharpened their blades, swearing to prove that mercy was weakness by drowning the galaxy in blood. But others hesitated, their hands heavy when they lifted their weapons, their minds echoing with the memory of a man who fought without hate. Commanders shouted at them, demanded obedience, but obedience no longer came so easily. The human soldier remained in chains, his body weakened, but his spirit untouchable. When guards came to mock him, he spoke calmly. "You think chains can silence me, but chains cannot hold ideas." Some guards spat at him, others turned away, but a few lingered, their hearts shaken. Even in captivity, he was winning a war no one could see. The alien child, no longer silent, became his voice. She spoke in gathering places, her words carried by hidden transmitters across the stars. "He saved me when even my own people would not. He showed me mercy when all I knew was cruelty, and you call that weakness." Her small voice carried a weight that armies could not match. To many, she became a symbol, proof that the human's choice was not a trick, but truth. Civil unrest began to spread. Riots broke out on border worlds, rebellions sparked in mining colonies. The Council responded with fire and steel, but every strike only fueled the flames. For each protest they crushed, 10 more rose. For every rebel they silenced, 1,000 remembered. And so the Great War changed. It was no longer humans versus aliens. It was mercy versus cruelty, belief versus fear. Entire fleets broke apart, soldiers refusing to fight beside those who mocked the human. Brothers turned against brothers, clans against clans, all because of one choice made on a battlefield of smoke and fire. The Council gathered again in fury. "This cannot continue," the leader thundered. But even as he spoke, distant planets were slipping from his grasp. The galaxy was no longer theirs to command. It belonged now to an idea, to a spark they had tried to bury in blood. And as that spark spread, they began to realize the truth. They were not fighting humanity anymore. They were fighting belief itself. The battle for belief had begun, and no empire, no council, no army could end it so easily. The galaxy was changing, and it would never be the same again. The galaxy was no longer the same. Worlds once silent under the rule of fear now echoed with voices demanding change. The human soldier, though still chained in the heart of the Empire, had already won a war larger than any battle of ships or guns. His act of mercy had split the Empire apart, and no amount of fire could burn away the truth. The High Council tried to hold control. They declared new decrees, stronger punishments, endless executions. But the more they tightened their grip, the more systems slipped away. Colonies refused orders, fleets deserted. Families turned against the cruelty they once worshipped. The council had ruled for centuries, but never before had they been so afraid. Inside his cell, the human waited, his body weak, but his resolve stronger than steel. He heard the whispers from the guards, whispers of uprisings, of soldiers refusing to kill, of planets declaring rebellion. He smiled faintly because he knew it was no longer about him. It was about the belief he had carried into the fire. Mercy had become a weapon stronger than any blade. The alien child stood before the people once again, no longer trembling, no longer silent. She spoke with the strength of someone who had seen both cruelty and compassion. They told us mercy is weakness, but I saw with my own eyes that mercy is stronger than fear. I stand because a human enemy chose to protect me, and now I choose to protect his truth. Her words lit flames across the Empire. To the young, she became a beacon. To the old, a reminder of what they had lost to endless war. Civil war spread like wildfire. Half the fleets fought to defend the old order, half fought to protect the new idea. Planets once united by cruelty, now shattered under the weight of choice. The galaxy bled, but in that chaos, something new was born. A chance for freedom, a chance for change. The human soldier was finally brought to the council chamber one last time. The leaders demanded he beg for his life, demanded he surrender his beliefs. But he stood tall, his voice steady. You fear me because I chose mercy, but you do not fear me. You fear the truth. You fear your own people realizing that strength is not killing. Strength is protecting. Strength is forgiving. The council roared in anger, but outside their walls, millions shouted his words. The echo of his voice reached farther than their threats. The final blow came not from humans, but from within the Empire itself. Entire fleets turned their weapons on the council, declaring that they would no longer serve cruelty. The Empire fractured, its throne of fear collapsing under the weight of rebellion. The High Council fell, their reign broken not by warships, but by a single choice made long ago. When the dust settled, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. Peace would not come easily, scars would not heal overnight. But the seed had grown into a forest, and no one could cut it down. The human soldier was remembered not as a prisoner, not as a warrior, but as a symbol. He had shown that mercy could survive in the darkest corners of war. And because of him, billions now believed in something greater than fear. In time, stories were told across the stars. They called him the man who turned fire into light, the soldier who stood against an empire with nothing but mercy, the warrior who changed the galaxy without spilling blood. His choice lived on, whispered in every language, carried in every song. A reminder that even in endless war, one act of compassion could shake the stars themselves.